So last time we picked up with this, we were talking about the deadlock and the stalemate with the trench warfare, it becoming a war of attrition. That and we're going to this the rest of this pair deck is going to focus on the idea that from this to start talking about some of the battles, and then we'll start talking about the American entry, and then we'll get into the Treaty of Versailles and the end. So we'll go through the ending here in this particular one. I'm going to hide myself because I'm getting kind of distracted, and the slides will distract me. So you'll let me talk for a bit. Sorry, I know I don't always do this, and you're probably sick of seeing my smiling face anyways. So I'm actually going to hide this as we go through it again. There'll be some videos. These don't play real well in the integrated, so I'll put them separately to answer the questions. So again, the trench warfare by 1915, the Western Front was miles of parallel trenches, and it was misery in the trenches, mud everywhere. And there was a opposing line, a grim name, no man's land. You go over the top of this bombed out landscape when the officers order an attack, and there's murderous rounds of machine gun fire, but staying put didn't necessarily ensure safety either, because you could be hit by artillery fire. I think Peter in the subsequent video will help to better explain that as we go along. So next, and what really made this go further was the fact that you had all of these different weapons, these new weapons, the tank, a new weapon, armored tank. If we were in class, you would do an activity on studying this more with more time. A tank was invented against trench warfare, to fight against trench warfare, to move against broken ground and barbed wire, poisonous gas. This really was nasty because Germany was using it to blind or choke its victims, and later that year the Allies began using it, and that's why he had to use the poisonous gas masks. And poisonous gas could be fatal. There's the famous poem by name's evading me now. E. Pluribus, excuse me, not E. Pluribus Unum. The name is escaping me right now, but one of the things in this famous poem, I shouldn't even mention it because the name's escaping me, talking about the poisonous gas. I think Wilfred Owen is the name of the poet. When I taught English, I used to teach that poem, and it was talking about the horrors of that. And the trenches, getting the gas tossed into the trenches was a horrific experience. Aircraft, first aircraft, as you know, the Wright brothers inventing the aircraft in the 1908, 1907 timeframe. Aircraft spying behind enemy lines in air battles. So both sides also use this to observe enemy troop movements. Germany used these things called Zeppelins, these large gas-filled balloons to bomb the English coast. Flying aces started battling the skies, and then you had submarines. The German U-boats dominated the seas. In these submarines, machine guns would go 100 rounds a minute. But the machine guns were not what you would think. Now they are more. They like the picture shows you they're stationary. And they're big. You couldn't carry them yet. And then of course the submarines. This is what the submarines, the U-boats, the attack is what would draw the Americans in, and they did tremendous damage to the Allied side. Okay, moving on to talking about
the stalemate in the.
And I'll show that a video in a separate thing. The battles. We'll focus on the Western Front, and then come back and do the Eastern Front. So the Western Front, the Battle of Verdun, one of the more famous battles on the Western Front. And as we, excuse me. You had the Battle of Verdun, French versus German battle, 11 months long, 305,000 dead, no gains. And then the Somme, the French versus Germany, 1 million dead, over 5 miles of land. Those are best examples of how this trench warfare just was a bloody stalemate. Okay, the individual names of the battles not as important as understanding that you had these bloody stalemates, and now I'm in the corner again. So that will cover talking about different uh, Western Front, and then we'll start talking about the Eastern Front and some of the other aspects as we continue here.